morning, everyone. This is Tony from our Homestead Skills, and it's been a while since I made chicken stock, and mostly because Mark really doesn't use too much of it during the summer months. But I thought I would take advantage of the fact that he doesn't use too much of it and make some and can it up rather than just put it in the refrigerator, so that at some point we will have chicken stock that is shelf stable. So at this point, this pot has been simmering at a very, very low temperature overnight, and now before I do anything else, I'm going to pull everything out and strain it. And if things got really ugly, you would not believe how much meat you can pull off these bones, but it is work, and things are not that desperate for me. I did it once. I don't know that I would bother unless it was absolutely necessary, but it is. You wouldn't think that there's any meat on it when you first put this into the water to boil, but by the time it's simmered, lots of meat falls off of it. Anyway, so, okay, most of this has been strained of all the larger particles, and I'm just going to let that continue to strain while I get everything else ready. I will be canning this up in pint jars, and probably should get, I don't know, 9, 10, 11 of them, 13 maybe. I forgot, it's been a while since I canned up chicken stock. So we'll see how many we get, and then we will can it up. Okay, I've prepared a dozen jars. I may need more. I have more available if I do need them. And I have got another strainer that I use with the funnel so that it'll catch other smaller bits that the straining the large ones out did not. You know, you don't really want bones or anything like that in here. So I'm going to obviously fill out these jars to about 1/2 inch headspace. And I do, you know, stir this up a bit each time before I fill it, because I don't remove the fat. Yeah, Mark seems to prefer to have some of the fat in there, so I leave it there. Now, if I wanted to remove the fat, and most people do, you just put this in the refrigerator, let it cool, and the fat will harden and be at the surface, and you can just scrape it off. But I want to try to make it, put it evenly throughout these jars, so I do stir it up so that I don't have one jar with a ton of fat and the rest with just chicken stock. And I prefer to simmer this overnight so that you get more of a clear consistency rather than a very hazy one. I prefer the translucent look of the chicken stock personally. I don't think we're going to get a dozen jars, but as I said, I prepared that many just in case. Better to have more than enough prepared rather than not enough. I think it's usually around 9 or 10, maybe 11. And I don't add any salt to this. You could do about 1/2 teaspoon of salt to each one. Once again, Mark prefers to be able to add his own salt when he's using these, so I try to accommodate. Okay, actually the only thing I've added to this chicken stock was an onion. period. That was it. And with just one layer of onion skin to give it a bit of color. And yes, that is where the color comes from, is the onion skin. Looks like I may get my dozen after all. Woohoo! Okay. As I said, here are some of the bits that we've collected that would have gone into the jars if I had not used that strainer. Now I'm just going to prepare all my lids and rings and my canning pot, and of course clean up all of this. Okay, so I've got my canner on the stove and it's prepped and ready. I have the heat turned on underneath it, and I have 3 quarts of water, which is what my Presto canner requires for pressure canning. So that's prepped and ready. I have my little weighted jiggler ready, and I have prepared, okay, let's see what we have here. I have a container with vinegar. Now this happens to be cleaning vinegar, but any vinegar will do. You just want to be able to use it to clean the rims of the jars. You don't want any grease or anything on the rims that will prevent a seal from occurring. So the vinegar is ready. I have my lids soaking in warm water, hot water, and I have a whole bunch of rings, at least a dozen, maybe more, and I will, you know, these we reuse and we wash them, reuse them every time until they get really grungy. There is maybe 1 or 2 that are probably ready to be disposed of, but I have more than a dozen there anyway, and I have a dozen jars here. So the next step is to clean the rims of these jars. Now, normally you would also consider debubbling, but because this is a liquid, there's nothing to debubble. So make sure that, and this is very hot yet, so make sure that you clean the rims really good. I have my little magnetic lifter. Put a lid on and put a ring on. And how much pressure to seal this is something that you pick up over time. There are so many people that just say strictly finger tight. I have found that I prefer to have it a little snugger. I want to be able to feel some resistance, but not much, because that has to be, the air has to expel from these jars in order for them to vacuum seal. Now I can put these 2 directly in my canner right now and continue along. So I will do this until I've got them all in the canner. Now I doubt that I'll be able to put all of these in one layer, so I'm going to have to put a second layer as well. And these, as I said, are very, very hot. Okay, I'm going to continue along, and when we're done, I'll get back to you. Okay, in my case, I was able to get 9 jars on the bottom, and I've got 3 left on the top. And I have a rack there to separate the 2. Now, if you've got ball jars, I think ball jars are just slightly smaller. These are Canadian versions, so they're just a tiny bit larger. But the ball jars, you could probably fit 10 on one layer. Unfortunately, I can only fit 9, but that's okay since I have to have a second layer anyway. Now, the balance of the vinegar, or at least some of it, I will toss into the water to keep the jars from getting cloudy. What it does, it just, keeps the hard water minerals off the outside of the jars and keeps them clean. Not necessary, but you can do that if you wish. So, at this point, the canner is all set up and loaded up. Okay, so I've put the lid on. Now we're going to vent this for a full 10 minutes. So what has to happen is you wait. It's starting to boil. I can hear it boiling. And you want the steam to rise from this little vent here. And actually, before you put the lid on, you should make sure that that vent is clear, that you can see through it, that there's nothing gumming it up, so that the steam can flow freely. And once it does, you let that vent for a full 10 minutes before you put the weight on. Okay? Okay, I don't think it's at all visible, but this has started to steam. Steam coming out of the vents here, so I'm going to set the timer for a full 10 minutes and let it vent. Yeah, perhaps, ouch, perhaps you can see the steam now that I've got something of a different color allowing it to be visible, but definitely a good, strong, steady stream of steam coming out of this little vent, and that's what you want. Okay. Okay, so the full 10 minutes has completed. Okay, so I've added my 10 pounds pressure, and you would have to adjust that based on your altitude, but mine, I just have to pressure can this at 10 pounds, 10, 11 pounds for 20 minutes for pints, and it would be different for quarts, but I'm making pints, so it's 20 minutes. But I have to still wait until this starts rocking gently, and my gauge reads anywhere from 10, 11 pounds, so the gauge is never 100%, so we just want to make sure that the weight itself rocks quite gently. So that's it. When it comes up to pressure, we can it, and it's just starting to move up there now. We can it for 20 minutes, and when that is completed, we just turn the stove off and let the pressure come down naturally. Do not try to force it. This is not like the Instapot where you can release the pressure and open it up immediately. You allow the pressure to come down naturally. Once the pressure is down to 0, then you could remove the lid and remove the jars. So we're just building up to our 10 pounds pressure right now. And as I said, once that has reached that level, and the little jiggler starts to rock gently, we're good. If it rocks too violently, turn down your temperature and adjust it so it's just a gentle rock. Okay, that's it for now. Okay, there it is. I have reached 10 pounds pressure. My little jiggler is rocking a little too much. I'm going to turn, I've got the temperature on at maximum anyway, so I'm going to turn it down to just above halfway. And as long as that continues to maintain that pressure and this jiggler rocks gently, I'm good. If it rocks too violently, you're losing too much steam from there. Okay. And now we set our timer for 20 minutes. Okay, that is the process. And by the way, for those that are very new at pressure canning or are afraid of pressure can, modern ones do not blow up. They blow out. We have this, and I'm not going to put my hand near this because it's hot, but this little black plug here, that is a safety valve. So if the pressure got too high, that would blow out, and release all the pressure, and your canner will not explode. So very little to fear. I understand that if you're new at pressure canning, it can be a little bit intimidating, but these new systems are almost foolproof. So try not to be afraid. If you've never pressure canned before, it's pretty easy, and every time you do it, you gain more confidence and experience. So it's all good.